Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast. I'm Ewan Graff, and as always, I'm joined by Lachlan Teely.
On episode 193, finally a lot of news has taken place, and strap yourselves in, it's going to be a 3-hour episode because we have some of the greatest news of the year. Just you wait.
Yeah, one of the films we're going to talk about is also, I think, around almost 3 hours long. But Lachlan and I also caught up with the two Twisters movies. We're going to talk on those a bit more next week. You can also find a non-spoiler review for it out on the channel already. I'm sorry, we're also going to talk about the Acolyte really quickly again. I'm sorry, we'll keep it brief, but it just hit a new low and we got to talk about it. Then I finished Jeff Nichols' filmography, watched The Imaginary and Fly Me to the Moon, and yeah, Lachlan got some stuff as well.
Finally, it's a double feature week as well. Two completely different films with different ideas and themes and genre. It's the end of the X trilogy, the T.I. West and Mia Goth partnership finally ending with MaXXXine, maybe not forever, but at least this trilogy, and Yorgos Lanthimos' partnership with Emma Stone's latest Kinds of Kindness.
Triple X, it's time for Vin Diesel to step back in and hand off the baton. But let's cue up the intro and get into the show. We are professionals.
This is a professional podcast.
Yes.
Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Hello there.
Which actually,
Did you
this
get
is gonna
me a
be
hat
a
as
bit,
well?
Yes.
So I've got Dooncam. It's just a camera with my Dune steelbook.
All right, Lachlan, you mentioned there's a bunch of news that happened, and let's talk about it. The news that has happened over the week. The first thing I want to talk about, which is a story that went a bit over my head in all of the, I guess, stuff that went on with Skydance and Paramount and like the merger or buyout that was happening, and then it, like a month ago, it just wasn't happening at all, and it seems like it's happening again now. And it seems to be official. I thought they had already closed the deal, but the TLDR of this whole thing is that this is still kind of a merger where Skydance buys out a lot of the debt that Paramount is in to make them both a more stable company. People are going to lose their jobs, as always, with these mergers. That's just always what's going to happen. I feel like it still is the better option than like another buyer that was out there for Sony to take over Paramount. So we would go back down from 5 big major like cinema distribution companies, theater distribution companies, like, because Netflix would be in there as well, right? Being on the size that they are, but they're streaming. Ultimately, this just kind of boosts them, gives them a bit more capital, or, you know, just on the fact sheet, on the like whatever sheet that you have for companies, it looks a bit better. It's not like it magically just fixed everything. Yeah, Lachlan, I think we talked about this a bunch, and your thoughts were basically like, yeah, if it turns out that Paramount can continue to make movies, then good thing overall, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Paramount hasn't really been, that successful recently. I think that's like
Day One were theirs that have hit a bit. But yeah, they're in the top 10, but they're like number 9 and 10.
Yeah. But we'll see. I mean, it's just kind of what's happening right now is big companies can't sustain, companies get merged, that company dissolves, and it's just back up there again. So we'll see what happens. Give it 10 years and A24 will be emerging with a different company, and Neon will do the same thing. These smaller studios will eventually merge and be a part of a bigger company all in all. It's just the natural thing that happens, right?
It is the natural progression of things, which I feel like, yeah, we can say it still is a pity, because those early A24 things were like where they stood out. Those films were that they were pushing the envelope and being a bit different. And now that they move a bit more into that direction, it's always like, the band got too big. I liked them when they had like this many listeners, and I'm actually a true one. Like, I don't know, it's not that gatekeepy, but it's still, when it's so tied to money, this business, then it like really quickly, once these mergers happen, it just stifles creativity. And like companies that are particularly known for that, like Neon with their selection, and A24 especially, if they get picked up by someone like Apple, I feel like it would be the least of my worries from all of the other ones. But any of the other ones were, but I don't think they're like looking to sell anytime soon. But yeah, like you said, in the span of 10 years, that's bound to be happening at some point. speaking of financial troubles and all that and box office, Kevin Costner's epic Western series that's supposed to be 4 parts, 2 of them
The
are
savior of
filmed.
cinema.
In a way, that genre, like, he has had flops before, like Waterworld, for example, like huge budget, tanked at the box office. I think it was a bit proportionally overblown of how much of a loss that was for the studio. This one, it got the sad news that I don't know if it's sad overall for, I guess, this saga that this American saga that he's telling. But they pushed the August 16th release date of part 2 back to an indefinite release, and this could just be them quietly like killing this. It's the distribution for this is taken up by New Line Cinema. They're like part of Warner Brothers, speaking of like other things like production companies being part of a larger one, and they only have the distribution rights for the first 2. And they're independently produced, these films. They're distributed through New Line and Warner Brothers. Pushing back the second one, I feel like makes it way more unlikely that the third that they were about to film or have started filming, or at least it's in production, is also going to be distributed by them. And I feel like part 4 is very unlikely now. The movie also comes out when this episode released, 2 days from now. It's out on streaming, which I feel like is a good thing. I initially said that it should release at the end of July. They're already putting it out at the middle, in the middle of July. Westerns have never done great at the box office outside of the States, and even then, there's a handful of films that have grossed, I think, over $100 million at the box office. So it's not like a lucrative genre. Do you feel like it's a mismanagement of like 36 or $34 million of Kevin Costner's own money that he put into this? Or do you feel like, hey, this passion project, ultimately, it exists? It's a very leading question, the way I'm phrasing it, but basically, Lachlan, what do you think?
Man, it's so complex because first of all, I haven't seen Horizons yet, so I can't judge the film for its quality, for what it actually says, what it tells, what story it tells, I should say. From what I can talk about, which is the behind the scenes of Costner putting his own money and funding this film as a passion project. At a certain point, when you're self-funding projects, you have to have people along the line that help you say no and help you go, hey, this isn't probably a good idea for you to put this much money into it. And the thing is, it's like, obviously he's really passionate about this. And the thing is, we will get great films by people taking risks like this. But at the same time, if you're taking a big risk like this, you have to understand there can be consequences. And obviously, by them pushing back Chapter 2, it gives enough time for Chapter 1 to breathe and for people to kind of fall in love with it. I mean, Marvel didn't just drop Endgame 2 months after Infinity War came out, right? It was like a good year and a half. There was a good building period of that foundation. You're not going to have that with this. And to have them push it back is kind of unfortunate because, I mean, does the first one end pretty poorly and kind of obviously shows?
Yeah, the first one, I don't consider this a spoiler, but the first one, because it is a continued saga, the first one ends with like a big montage showing what I think is going to happen in the second one. It's like a 4-minute long, 5-minute long trailerish setting. It's a montage, like in really the way that you would describe it in film terms, but it feels really odd the way that it ends. And I don't think the first one is particularly good. So maybe the second one builds on something that I don't think really was set up in this first one, but more stuff happening in there. It feels like a lot of setup, which if he pictures this as a 4-part series, then maybe that makes a bit more sense. That ultimately as like a whole product, it's great, but you gotta figure something out that like each part is like worth seeing. And I wouldn't recommend part 1 unless you're like a diehard Western fan. Then it's going, and Westerns are hard to sell anyways, and then it's 3 hours long, so it's a tough sell. Yeah, not so tough as Despicable Me 4. I really tried to see this one. I know I was like, I'll see it at the end of the year. I was like, no, I'll just like get it over with. And it had a pretty good opening, 75 million domestic. It's currently already at 255 worldwide. So it's tracking like 90 million behind Inside Out domestically, but I'd still consider it quite a big hit. But what was interesting is that like Inside Out didn't take like that much of a hit from like this new movie coming out, and that was the speculation of like how much further can Inside Out go. It's really surprising. I think Inside Out just broke into the top 25 or the top 20 highest grossing films of all time. Not so much on a roll is Redbox, which was I never heard of this because I'm not from the States. Lachlan, you are neither. I don't know. Probably had like maybe a similar service in Australia. Or maybe we're too young for that for video rental stuff. I don't really remember picking up a lot of that stuff. I remember one closing about like over a decade ago. That was just close to where I lived. But Redbox was this video rental store that had or not stores. They had like these kiosks. I think they started out in like McDonald's where they were basically selling, I think, like some extra food stuff, and then they changed their model, adjusted it to only movies, I think, at one point. And I think you could pick up like a film for $2. They're shutting down all 24,000 of their kiosks. They're like $1 billion in debt, and they filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which if you file for for Chapter 7, which basically means you're liquidating everything. If you file for Chapter 11, then you could still kind of try to make the money back in some sort of way. With 7, it's like, you're done, boy. And it's basically, I feel like the death of this sort of thing, like it feels like once Netflix has transitioned into a streaming service and that became their main business module, that was already like on death's door, but this is the final nail in the coffin. Yeah, to me, like, it's not something that I used. I feel like a lot of stuff has moved to digital, and I feel like for accessibility, that is fine. Only mainly, unfortunately, on illegal sites, because the preservation online is pretty flimsy, and this was one of the pillars of still having that in place. But yeah, Lachlan, what do you think? You like to collect these like special editions, like steelbooks, 4Ks, more than I do. So what do you think about this?
I wasn't paying attention. I was reading the reviews of Horizon. I'm so sorry.
That's fine. Hey, look, can you switch?
I heard my name and I panicked.
Cam? You can. It's like
yeah. One sec. I've got it. I do. I literally do. It never
Here we
gets
go. You're
taken
redeemed.
off.
You're redeemed.
Thank you. Hang on. It's got a bit of dust on it.
Which is fitting. It should be sand. Canonically, it should be sand, not dust. Are you blowing the dust off?
Yeah.
Hey, I can do the same. I got some. Can do that too, like.
Yeah, I've got compressed air. It's great.
I got compressed air too. Like, what's up? I was pressing it a bit too much, and then I was like breathing it in, and I feel like you're not supposed to breathe it in.
No,
it got
you
me
shouldn't
dizzy.
be breathing it in.
It's not like an oxygen tank.
It literally has on here, inhaling contents may be fatal. But, Ewan, it explains a lot. Don't worry, it explains a lot.
That does explain a lot. Where were we? What were we
You were
talking
saying
about?
something about my
Being
steelbooks.
dying? Yeah, steelbooks. I don't know if I need your comment on this. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just Redbox is dead. Video rental is dying as well. That's not.
It was
not
called
even
Video Easy
really
in
new.
Australia, and it shut down years ago.
I didn't even know if we had like a nationwide thing here.
Oh, wait, you know what
in
else I've got?
Switzerland. I don't remember.
You know what else I've got? Oh, do I still have it?
What?
I have got a Blockbuster signage from the last Blockbuster that
damn.
shut down in Western Australia.
You got it?
No, you keep talking. I'll try to get it out.
And then yeah, lastly, we basically avoided another big old strike that could have shut down the industry once again, and it's still not like settled. Contract thing expires. Ooh, action, big old action. I thought it was gonna say Blockbuster, but action is fine as well.
I can't. I don't think I can get the Blockbuster one out. It's so.
Oh wait,
far
I thought it
down
was
in
just
this
the
hole.
action one, but it's all the different genres. If you open up a video store yourself, then I don't think you got enough like physical media for an anime section. do you have like any? I guess Ghibli
What do you
would
mean?
count, but
I've got Ghibli stuff.
yeah, but beyond that, I assume you don't have much.
I don't think so. No. Blockbuster sale.
Alright.
Oh, great. Anyway, that's
Nice.
there's more in here. I just can't get it because it's really hard to get.
Yeah, once you lock down posters, it's like such a hassle of like getting them out ever unless you hang them up,
Literally.
because getting them back is I have to deal with posters on a weekly basis, so yeah, it's always a pain.
We get it. You work at a cinema.
I'm a cinema goer and a cinema worker. I'm working here. So the IATSE, the stage employees, almost phrasing it this way is bad, but caused another strike. I feel like their negotiations, if they don't get to a deal, then that's causing another strike. Not they are causing a strike. They're basically asking for adjustments to wages. That's usually the first thing that you do in these negotiations, and basically a lot of it is concerned about like the inner circle of LA. I'm blanking on what it's called, but like it's a certain mile radius is what it's called, and basically like getting overtime for work days that are beyond 14 hours. And so if the length of a shooting day goes over that amount, then the production has to provide them either housing or a free round trip back home and back to the shoot, because it's just, after 14 hours you're exhausted and you got to drive back home. It's just not safe then, and that's what they're negotiating for. And then basically a bunch of overtime. When they go into overtime, they get like, instead of just like a slightly adjusted higher rate, they would get double the pay. And then if it goes above 15 hours on day like 1 through 5 of consecutive work days, they would get triple the amount. If it goes like, I think to 7, they would get the 4x amount. So I feel like that would be a fair deal. If you overwork them like that much, you ultimately are getting the bag for it as well. And then another big discussion point is always AI. And basically what they're inching closer towards is a deal that would make it so you can't fire someone from a production and let them go because of AI, because the job can be done by AI. It's a flimsy thing though, because ultimately you could just hire less people and do the job with AI, and then you technically don't have to let anyone go. But it's still replacing jobs, especially like in the art departments. I feel like is where we're going to see that. Like we had that like mini controversy with I saw the devil, with those like frames that they had. I didn't notice that was a part of it, but that's obviously like taken away from work that an artist would do. They are working on that deal as we speak. The results will be announced on the 19th, and the contract would expire on the 31st. So if they don't get to a deal, then we could see another strike happening. But it seems like they're getting closer to actually getting this done. And then that's for the main news. Lachlan, we do have a couple of quick news to go over. So let's get into those.
Jennifer Lawrence is the star in marital dark comedy Why Don't You Love Me for A24. Lawrence and Ari Aster are also producing this film based on a graphic novel by Paul B. Rainey and a screenplay by Robert Funk.
That's a cool name. Then the final Conjuring movie sets its fall 2025 release date.
Finally, the greatest news of the year. Shrek 5 is happening in 2026. Everyone is coming back, for at least from my knowledge that I saw, on July 1st. There are other films coming out that year that are animated. Frozen 3, Toy Story 5, Paw Patrol 3, The Cat in the
Waiting
Hat.
for that one.
Another Mike Myers fucking classic. Super Mario Bros. 2, Aang the Last Avatar, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. What a stacked year of animation.
What a stacked year of either remakes or sequels, though, but I'm sure we'll get a bunch of original animated films as well. Sam Raimi is set to direct a new horror film titled Send Help, described as a thriller set on an island like the horror version of Castaway.
The Matt Reeves cinematic universe for DC is slowly crumbling and falling apart. The Arkham Asylum series is no longer moving forward, just leaving the only spin-off right now being the Penguin.
That's coming out later this year. The Batman star Zoe Kravitz has been cast alongside Austin Butler in Darren Aronofsky's next film, Caught Stealing. The film follows a burnt-out former baseball player who is plunged into a wild fight for survival in the downtown criminal underworld of the 90s New York City.
In some tragic news, Scream Queen Shelley Duvall has passed away at age 75. Obviously, well known for the
Shining.
Hello, The Shining. Why did it just disappear from my fucking mind?
Nashville.
It's like
yeah.
it's the only movie that she's pretty much known for. But yeah, it's absolutely tragic to see her go.
Then, but I'd say on tragic news as well, but it's like obviously not that bad. But maybe on a personal note, you know, for the connection, it is pretty bad that the Minions free. There's 3 of these fucking things. Will release on June 30th in 2027.
And Marvel Animation will have their own panel at D23 in August, showcasing new details and first looks for The Eyes of Wakanda, What If Season 3, X-Men 97 Season 2, and Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah, I never asked you, did you watch X-Men 97? You haven't yet,
Nope.
right? It's pretty good. These other titles. I mean, Spider-Man is always great. Danny Ramirez has been cast alongside Joaquin Phoenix in Todd Haynes' next movie. The film is described as likely NC-17 rated and follows 2 men who are intense lovers and leave California for Mexico. So that's chef's... for me, Todd Haynes, I'll be there Thursday.
Finally, Nicolas Cage is terrified of AI. He says, "I don't want you to do anything with my face and body after I'm dead," which I think is a fantastic stance on it. After all, he was CGI animated into The Flash, and that was no fun.
He was okay with... I feel like he kind of was okay with it at some... like, I don't know. I feel like that was like a thing around it, but this quote here specifically is like about when he's dead. And yeah, that we don't have a secured thing that's not going to happen. I would be terrified. Like, if I could edit better, I would recut the beast thing. The beast, but make it the bots. And it's like little bots attacking him.
Yeah.
Or just like little tennis balls stuck onto his head so they can scan it. But yeah, AI in that way. I feel like the AI news has shifted more into like the NFT sphere, where it's like, it's all speculation and it's pretty much no use. And you're like, get the fuck out of here with your stupid...
Yeah.
If you stupid implementation that don't really work as well yet. All right, that's it for the quick news. Let's have a look at some trailers. And there were some big ones that dropped. Probably like the biggest part of the news this week were the trailers. I do have F1 here before. We'll get into that in a second. I actually do want to talk about Gladiator II first, because it's one of the films that we are very much anticipating. I think Ridley Scott's second or maybe best film. It's really up there. Gladiator is amazing. It comes out November 22nd, and we get to see a bunch of battles, fights, but ultimately it seems from the trailer quite spoilery as well. So if you want to go in blind and not knowing much about it, I feel like it's going to be basically like a revenge story again. But the reception to this trailer, I don't get where the hate is coming from for a lot of things recently. It starts off with like at the end, there's a bit of rap, and at the beginning, and I think a lot of people were criticizing the way that Denzel Washington appears in the trailer, like just laid back and cool, and like Lachlan, do you see why 255,000 people dislike this over the 128 that liked it on the initial trailer that they released? Like, what the fuck is happening?
No, maybe because it's a Kanye West song. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, but that I didn't see that much that being mentioned in the comments a bunch. I just saw like also YouTube comments is probably the worst place to make sense of things.
Well, what?
Because there's
what do the comments?
So many dumb people with like fingers that they can type, but clearly not connected to anything that you could call conscience.
Again, we've said this in many different episodes, but the people who make the trailers are not Ridley Scott. And obviously, everyone needs to realize that it's a marketing team that puts in the effort to make these trailers. So they're going to use music that's sometimes not from the film. That's just like a random song.
Yeah. It's not like, you know, the even Kinds of Kindness has Sweet Dreams in it, but it's just like way shorter in the actual movie than they used for the trailer. maybe that was even something that they added after the fact. Did you end up watching the trailer? Because we talked about like if you actually should see it or if you
Yeah,
don't
I
want to be
watched the
spoiled.
trailer. I ended up watching it.
I love Paul Mescal, but he looked kind of bad in this trailer. Like obviously physically he looked great, but the scenes and the moments that like I was like, ooh, I'm not in with like him. Like any of the characters weren't like super intriguing to me so far.
Mm.
So I get the maybe the hesitation of saying, "Oh, I'm really excited for this." I don't get the hate though. But yeah, what did you make? What did you make of the rest of the trailer?
I didn't really mind it, again, because I put most of these trailers on the back end being like, they're not made by the same people, so I can't really hold it
Yeah.
against it. When there's a good trailer, there's a good trailer, and that causes hype. And I think that I've been tainted this year because Longlegs has had one of the best marketing campaigns in a movie in such a long time that now marketing
Mhm.
campaigns, trailers for movies are just a little bit too much. And it shows that sometimes little is enough. And Longlegs is a great example of a fantastic marketing campaign. They didn't have to have a 3-minute long trailer here. They didn't have to have all of these fight scenes. They didn't have to have,
Well,
a big rhino in the trailer.
not for us.
Yeah.
I feel like not for us, but you're still trying to like. There's people who read the Wikipedia page of a movie before they go to see it, and I feel like that's more and more maybe who you're trying to reach as well. With like younger audiences, getting them back, and they ultimately often don't mind to see more than they're supposed to.
Mm.
But yeah, it's definitely not for us. I feel like we don't need to be sold on Gladiator 2. We'll see it as soon as it comes out. But I feel like the battles, as always, like Ridley Scott is great. Like Napoleon's highlights were the battle scenes, and if it features a lot of that beyond just the Colosseum fights, like that's going to redeem it in some sort of way, regardless of what the plot is going to be.
Yeah.
Just because he can do those scenes so well. It's really impressive what Ridley Scott like does with large scale fighting. I'm looking forward to it still, and yeah. Then F1 cars go brr 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 brr.
Brr, 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 brr.
Mm. Do you watch any racing F1? Any of that?
Occasionally I put it on. Not a lot, but
Yeah,
occasionally
yeah.
I do watch it.
I don't own a car. I'm 26 and I don't have my driver's license. So like I'm not someone who you can sell with like cars. I really couldn't give less of a shit. But I feel like this trailer was cut in an interesting way. Speaking of, what a trailer does, I feel like here it had an interesting choice of I don't even know how to like how would you describe the trailer and how it goes about? Like it's not conventional.
No, I think what it is it's selling you on the look. It's selling you on the style of this film because it's an Apple TV
Yeah.
Plus, or Apple TV original, I should say, film.
It's gotta look
And one of the
clean as fuck.
one of the best things about Apple TV is how clean these films look. And I have to admit, this trailer looks really like there's not a single drop of dirt in a radius around these lenses. And even when there's like dirt flying from a crash, it's just pristine, crisp detail. And I think that it does a pretty good job getting that sort of that build up, but I just didn't like the song. I didn't like them using Queen. I wanted something
rock
else,
you.
but yeah, whatever. It was okay. I'll watch it.
Hans Zimmer is returning to score it. He last did the racing film Rush, which I watched when it came out. So that must have been like a decade ago. I don't pay attention to scores that much, but I feel like it was good with a bombastic score. So Hans Zimmer is definitely the right guy to get. I couldn't tell if they are doing like the Top Gun approach of like actually they don't have Michael Fassbender who's just like casually loves to race. They got Brad Pitt, and probably not like in an actual F1 car, but it looked very much like they were focusing on actually seemingly being like I don't know what you call it in the driver's seat, like right in front of them. And I like that look. It feels like it's focusing on catering to that audience and what they would care for, other than just like using F1 as like a name piece and basically delivering on what people would like from this. And yeah, if they can deliver on this, I feel like F1 has surprised me with how big it is. Especially now that it's, I feel like, gotten bigger since they did those docu-series on Netflix. I feel like it has grown in popularity in the States as well. So summer 2025, look out. We might have like a top 5 movie on our hands. That's for the dads, but also goes beyond the dads.
I think it will be good. I mean, you've gotten Gran Turismo last year, I think it was, and that was really solid for
Yeah.
its visual work. I mean, you had Neil Blomkamp, and now you've
Mhm.
got Joseph Kosinski, who did Top Gun, and I
Yeah.
think that Top Gun stood out for its visual flair with the planes, and I think that you're gonna have a
Exactly.
very similar thing here. So I'm kind of keen to see it because it looks pretty.
And then you also got like we didn't touch on the cast yet, but you got a pretty cool cast as well. I saw Javier Bardem in there. I saw that like Lewis Hamilton is also listed as Carrie Condon and Brad Pitt. You know, movie star Brad Pitt always works in in these types of things. Like Lachlan never stops talking about like WandaVision and the MCU and like, oh my god, we need more of Agatha the Witch, and now they delivered. It's Agatha All Along. It's out later this year. Has a 2-episode premiere on September 18th. And Lachlan, you're such a big fan of this. So, what did you think of this Marvel trailer? Yes, new Marvel series. Oh,
Thanks,
he's
man.
taking a swig so he can spit in my face.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Trailer is trailering and can't wait to
Mhm.
see it because I love
Yeah.
WandaVision so much. I love the
Yep.
MCU so much. In fact, I have a tramp stamp of the MCU just above my ass crack. Yeah, man, I love it so much.
It's like the Infinity Gauntlet, and one of them is missing, and then it points down to your asshole, and it's like, look for a hidden treasure. The final one.
Jesus Christ.
Cavity
How much
stuff.
of that
was really
compressed air
crass.
were you inhaling before the episode?
Sorry, let me get another. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, I don't remember wanting to watch this. But again, the only
Yeah.
Marvel thing I'm going to watch soon is going to be Deadpool and Wolverine, which is in 2 weeks from
Yep.
now. And if that flops, guess what? I'm not going to watch any Marvel stuff. I'm not going to do it. If that
What?
sucks, I'm just going to flat out just not
He's-
watch any Marvel.
He's done.
Unless you force me to do it for the podcast or whatever, but like I'm not going to actively go out there
I
and be
might
like,
force him
I'm
to.
going, I might force him to. Come on, get out of the basement, Lachlan. Go, get it. But I don't want to watch it anymore if it's just not going to be fun. Because they just, like,
Mhm.
they haven't been fun. That's the thing. I don't know what's
No.
wrong with Marvel
Yeah.
movies. Like, I want entertaining movies. And the thing is, these 2 movies today, one of them I loved for what it was, right? But another
Mhm.
one was just so goddamn entertaining. And you can probably guess which one I'm talking about.
I know
that-
which one you're talking about, yeah.
I don't care about its flaws. And that's the thing. I don't care about some of the Marvel movies' flaws because they were entertaining. But they've lost it. They're just, Anyway,
They've lost it.
there's my
Much
MCU
like
rant.
the Infinity Stone that's stuck in Lachlan's asshole. Anyways, We Live in Time has Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield as a couple that's going through life. And We Live in Time basically, I guess, means that it takes place over a couple of years, like when they have a kid, before they have a kid, all the hardships that they go through. And while watching this trailer, I was like, holy shit, this is catering to me. This is exactly my thing. Holy fuck, I'm looking forward to this. And it comes from John Crowley, a filmmaker that I'm not familiar with, but he's like, I haven't seen any of his stuff yet, other than the Black Mirror episode that he directed. But Brooklyn is, I see directed 2 episodes of True Detective as well. I didn't know
Season
that.
2.
But yeah, season 2. I haven't seen season 2 yet, so I'm actually still unfamiliar with him. But yeah, Lachlan, what did you think of this? Like, amnesia, love story. It's more of my thing than yours, but did you get intrigued as well?
Oh, he did the episode that I haven't seen yet of Black Mirror.
Which
Yeah,
one?
no,
Which one was that?
I'm intrigued. Beyond the Sea. I'm intrigued. I
Yeah.
really liked this, and the thing is, I really like both Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh in no particular order. I think they're both fantastic at what they do, and I think
Yeah.
that this movie could make me cry. I think we're gonna call it.
Yeah,
I think
dude,
this movie might
I
make me
almost
cry.
cried at the trailer. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, oh my god,
Okay.
it's
I'm not that
staring
bad.
me up. It was like, nah, maybe I'm just in a bad emotional space right now. But it's
From
yeah,
inhaling all
no,
the compressed air.
it probably all comes back to this, huh? It's like, yeah,
What comes back to that?
dust her. I hardly know her. Yeah, I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this. And did you say it's A24? It's A24. It's from A24 as well. All right, Lachlan, let's talk about what we've been watching this week. Yeah, there's a bit of overlap of what we watched and obviously the movies that we're going to discuss later, Kinds of Kindness and MaXXXine. But we also caught up with the 2 Twister movies. There's also going to be a separate review for that, but maybe we could give up brief thoughts watching the first one. I feel like it was both of our first time watch with Twister, right? And it certainly is of its time. You know, it's definitely like that time period that it's in, it belongs there. But there's also something very charming about it.
Yeah, I had a lot
like
of fun.
The over the top. I had a lot of fun as well. I feel like it's not a very serious movie. This next one is like Twisters is a bit more serious, but you'd expect that from Lee Isaac Chung.
Yeah,
it is modernized in a lot of ways, and I liked it quite a bit. I feel like I like Twisters more than I like Twister. Maybe that's just because I'm a modern audience goer, and we both weren't alive when the first Twister movie came out. But yeah, I like both of these films. Not a bad franchise. I like it.
I think that Twister has its place in cinema history for its visual effects use, and I think that it is a standout. I think it's a lot of fun. I think that, yes, there are some ideas that haven't aged fairly well, but I think that it does its job and gets to what it needs to do, and that's just be entertaining. And then Twisters does the same thing. Except less about the visual effects stuff, because that's pretty easy these days, but it can show you what it can do and show you how realistic it can be and can just show you how to have a fun time and still have really interesting characters. But I won't get too into it because you said we're going to do it next week. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Spoilers next week.
Spoilers.
But yeah, I got to see it early because it's not out yet for me here and in the States as well. Australia got it early for some reason. Because they were like, dude, we need a big week where you get like all the movies in one go. And I can recommend it. Go see it so we can get into full-on spoilers next week. But we also watched The Acolyte, episode 7. That's Kogonada back. He directed episode 3 and this one, the 2 flashbacks. So spoilers for Acolyte. I feel like if you haven't watched it or you're not like already typed a comment and are not angry at whatever. I don't know what you're angry about, but I feel like this episode was a new low. it was so bad, but it had like a fight there where it's like, give me more of that. That's actually like not bad stunt direction or like action direction, and you can clearly see that that's. I can hear you just fine.
Whose end is it? I can't hear you. I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, that's weird. It's working all on my
Ewan, are you pranking me?
Not all working on my end. Can hear you perfectly.
All working on my end. Okay, sweet, cool. So
maybe your headphones.
The Discord audio is coming through my headphones right now. One sec.
Upside down.
Change the default output.
Audio logic.
Say something.
So I'm giving up on
Nothing's
you.
coming through.
I'm sorry that I couldn't get to you. Anywhere I would have followed you. Say something, I'm giving up on you. And I'm feeling
Dude, no, you're muted. Look.
Small.
On your thing, it has a little microphone muted symbol.
It does not.
On the thing there.
Nope.
No, seriously, I'm not even joking you. Like, even on here.
But not on my end. Not for me. It's like
there's
this is turned off.
A microphone muted symbol on your thing. Have I muted you?
Yes, you might have.
I muted you! That's what I did! I muted you! How funny!
You're such a fucker.
I don't know how I did
that's
that.
about the experience that you get from what felt like was going on the Acolyte set. From the miscommunications.
Oh, right, yeah. This is great.
Just like stuff not going well. I was talking about the Acolyte and how the stunt direction was actually kind of interesting. The rest of it was all just like... Ugh.
The lightsaber battle choreography is fantastic. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, nothing else to say, I guess. Yeah, like I also said, like this is the second episode of Kogonada where they do the youth thing to the face, the digital de-aging, and you got those. I'm sorry, but like the worst child actors I've seen in years, and I'm quick to hate on child actors, but these two are so bad. Nothing's working. I gave this one a 2 out of 10, by the way. It's just like, oh yeah.
Wowzers.
Doesn't get much worse than this. And yeah, next week, big finale. We'll have like a series review that I'm sure is not going to be controversial at all. But yeah, you also played Metal Gear Solid 3. You finished that one. Moving on to the next one. Tell us about it. Did he mute me again, or what's happening? Lachlan?
You're breaking up again.
What the fuck is happening? Oh, it says my connection is bad. It said 323 ms. Why though? Why, brother? Why?
Is Discord down or something?
Maybe it's Discord's problem.
No,
Maybe
it says
let's
it's
switch
up.
to a call. Let's switch to a call. Maybe that's better. One sec.
What's
I don't know
up?
if this is any better. Maybe
This is a little bit better.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes. Let's
Quack.
keep going.
You played Metal Gear Solid 3 and you finished you finished the third game, and I
Yep.
believe you're starting the next one. So yeah, can
Yep.
you tell us about it? Steam Deck, or is it like a main PC playthrough?
No, it's on a really long cable, so I can do this. Oop, maybe not. I'm playing it on my PlayStation 3, which I accidentally just turned on, which I pulled out of hibernation. I haven't played this thing in probably like 8 years, maybe 9 years.
Yeah.
I haven't touched this thing. No, longer. How long ago did the PlayStation 3 come out?
It's been a while.
Wait, no.
It's been,
When did the
PlayStation 4, I
PS4 come
guess.
out?
Yeah. The PS4 came out in 2013, end of 2013.
What was that? PS4?
Yeah.
So I've had that for like just before the PS4 came out. So I must have got that in 2013 because I bought that and then it was like PS4's here. And I was like, damn it. Anyway, I'm playing Metal Gear Solid 4 on that because there's no PC port. Emulating it is bloody difficult. And 3, I don't have the time. So I'm playing it on the floor like I would if I was a small child in like young years. Like I'm not playing it anywhere. I'm like sitting on the floor because the controller needs to be plugged in. And I don't have any longer of a cord than like literally this big. So I'm playing it like this up the TV, just like right there. I'm getting a neck cramp from it. So I'm having a great time.
Yeah. You know, it takes you back to the time as a kid where you're like down in Australia and you're just munching on snakes as well. Typical snake eater experience, that type of shit.
Snakes. Yeah.
Snake, yeah. You got snakes. We don't have snakes here. We the only snakes we have are like tiny ones that are just blind. We call them blind snakes.
Okay.
We call them blind snakes, and that's all the stuff that we got. We don't really have any snakes here. But yeah, so you're continuing on with the next one, and that's Metal Gear Solid 4. Is there like a modern port for it, or what console did that? So it's on the
PS3.
Still, okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't there like a remake that's coming out soon of for one
That's
of them?
Metal Gear Solid 3.
It is free. So you're replaying it here to play it again in the modern version, or?
Well, I've never played them, so I'm doing a playthrough of them.
Oh, this is just like the first time around. Yeah. I couldn't get
some of them I have played. Some of them I haven't played. At least some of them I haven't played all the way through, and I hadn't played 3 all the way through. I have played like 1. I played the intro to 2, but like I played playing them through. I haven't played 4. I played the shit out of 5 because that's like the first one I played. But now I'm playing them in order.
I should definitely get around to them as well, but I guess for some of them you need to bust out bring out the PS3 again to get to them.
Let's give me some memories.
Yeah, I think I only have a memory of like playing GTA 5 when I was way too young. Sorry, not GTA 5, but GTA. not that young. Definitely also not old. Don't call us old or young. We're neither. We're just the perfect age. But I think my mom got mad and she broke the PS2.
Nice.
She broke the whole console. I feel like on accident, but then after the fact she was like, yeah, no, that's what I meant to do. But yeah. All right. top and flop section from my end. I'm just gonna say the title and not much beyond because we got so much to do. But Chime, thumbs up. Control, Kevin Spacey's back. Horrible movie. God is a Bullet, another bad one. The Jeff Nichols films, Mud is good, Midnight is mid, and Loving is kind of also mid to bad. My Adventures with Superman, about what you'd expect. Just like really flimsy though, has like some anime opening aesthetics, and it's okay. It's like decent. Acolyte, like I said, horrible, and The Boys, I feel like it is okay-ish. If they nail the finale here, episode 7 was fun, but overall it's a quite underwhelming season. And then some more thoughts on Fly Me to the Moon. Scarlett Johansson, Channing Tatum faking the moon landing, or at least one of them is. That's like really good at lying and stuff. So she gets hired by the government to work at NASA to promote stuff for them and basically fabricate stuff up because it's being so commercialized. The moon landing is becoming so commercialized and all that. And I feel like it is okay. It's fun, but a movie like this, I'm not looking for a movie about the moon landing that's fun. I feel like there's more interesting stories to play and because to tell and because it's so flimsy, I feel like it's very forgettable. And if you in for that, then you'll have a great time with Fly Me to the Moon. I thought it was kind of just underwhelming. I didn't really like it that much. And then The Imaginary, lots of movies about imaginary friends this year. And this one's another one. I feel like it's definitely the better one. If you had to pick between If and The Imaginary, I'd go with the latter. It's streaming on Netflix. It's a Japanese film, so it's got great aesthetics. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like close to the Ghibli feel, but there's certainly similarities, and gets a bit more real in moments than If. Like If stays clearly and the like only for little 3-year-olds could watch this and have a good time, and I feel like The Imaginary maybe is like 6-year-old and up. Anyways, that's the stuff that I watched this week. So let's get to one of our first film. One of the films we're gonna talk a bit more in detail about. It's the end of a trilogy that was done over the span of like I feel like 2.5 years. With X coming out in 2022, and then later that year. At the Venice Film Festival, Pearl premiered, and now with a bigger budget than these other two, and not filmed back to back, we are getting MaXXXine going bigger, not bloodier, and also unfortunately not better than the first two. Yeah, again from Ty West, the director of the first two, Mia Goth in all 3 of those. But yeah, Lachlan, what's the But yeah, no, sorry. Could you read us the log line?
Sure.
Dude,
in 1980s Hollywood, adult film star and aspiring actress Maxine Minx finally gets her big break. As a mysterious killer stalks the starlets of Hollywood, a trial of blood threatens to reveal her sinister path.
What is her past, and what has she done before? I guess she's killed an old lady. Spoilers for X. Sorry, too late. But being the third one in the series, do you feel like, just before we jump into this, because we're going to keep it spoiler free before we talk about spoilers, do you feel like it's a requirement to have seen Pearl and X, or maybe just like X? What do you think?
I don't think it is necessarily a requirement. I think that the film does a lot of flashy back moments, and you can kind of put pieces together.
Yeah.
But I would probably recommend seeing at least X, because X is, spoiler for me saying this now, X is still my favorite. I think X was still just such a fun slasher. It did everything that I wanted, and just like Pearl and with MaXXXine, it leans into its style so heavily, and that's some of its best elements is literally the style of the film, what they do to get that particular style, how they restrict themselves. For example, in MaXXXine, I know that they restricted what kind of technology they could use to make this movie. In fact, using cameras from back in the 80s is what they did to achieve this look of this film. And I really respect that. I really respect T.I. West and the entire team crafting these movies and coming up with something that's a lot of fun as well. And I said it at the start, I was like, MaXXXine is a lot of fun. Pearl is fun, but I don't think is as fun as X, and X is just a lot of fun as well. As someone who really enjoys Texas Chainsaw Massacre and a lot of the really slashery horror films, less of this psychological and paranormal stuff, which yes, it does tiptoe into it a little bit, but it never really does anything more than just slashery, thrillery horror. And I think MaXXXine achieves its style, and I think that it achieves what it's trying to do. I think that it is probably the weakest of the three narratively, but
Yeah.
I think that it is the one that leans into its style the hardest. And I think that X is still quite conservative with how hard it went into the slasher flick style, where I think that MaXXXine is the first one where it really was like, go big or go home with its style.
I'd say I disagree, but maybe we have to wait until spoilers where we can talk about the specific moments. I felt like there wasn't much there, but I also didn't rewatch X for this, and I guess it's been a while. It's been like 2 years since that one came out. I mean, what's notable as well is that the first two were made for $1 million. I didn't see a reported budget for this one, but assuming from the cast, which includes Giancarlo Esposito, Elizabeth Debicki, Halsey, Kevin Bacon, Sophie Thatcher, Michelle Monaghan, Bobby Cannavale, Lily Collins, alongside Mia Goth. I assume, and Moses Sumney, but I think he in yeah, he was in The Idol. That's why I remember him from. But with that bigger cast, you'd expect a bit more to do for some of these people, and I feel like it just had them all at this disposal. All of these ideas that don't come together into a coherent movie, unfortunately. Which early reception to this, Metacritic 65, IMDb is 6.9, and on Letterboxd, the lowest, a 3.3. I guess it's about the same as Metacritic then. It's not been received as well as the others. So if you take a look at X, that's I guess at the 3.4. So and Pearl is the one that's the most liked, 3.7. I feel like Letterboxd just really likes those big acting moments, and this movie felt like, in ways, a reaction to how much Mia Goth got to do in that Pearl film with the monologue. Everyone was praising her for that, and it's like, okay, let's see more from not specifically that character, because that's the murder in X, but the survivor character here. Let's explore her more. He's just like, no, let's just make her character incredibly boring. Like I found her central character so unintriguing, and you could compensate that with having someone as over the top as Kevin Bacon's character turns out to be. But no, he also doesn't work for me. Like, just all of the characters in this film don't work. Like, for me, Teddy Knight, Esposito's character, also didn't come together. I didn't really get why Halsey was in this. Lily Collins is only in the movie like very briefly as well. I was a bit confused what they were trying to go for. Obviously, there's a couple of directions and misdirections of the ultimate like murder mystery that this movie falls more into, like the neo-noir thriller aesthetics more than the slashers. But it felt a bit like a mess to me. But yeah, did you want to talk about anything before we get into spoilers, or do you want to talk about specifics?
Sure.
Yeah, all right. Jumping head in first, busting those balls and talking spoilers. It's crushing testicles. Yeah, that scene is like probably the most. Oh my god, the most I flinched in a while in the theater. Yeah. What did you feel about like the
That's
brutal
fair.
moments of the film?
That is one of its stylistic achievements, is the practicality of some of these effects, the gore, how it doesn't look that realistic when you look close up into it, but it doesn't have to. And this is why I'm talking about why I think it leans really hard into its style. Is I don't think that it leans into it cinematography wise. I feel like a lot of it is safe when it comes to how it's shot, but there are particular elements, whether it's lighting, the uses of red, uses of
Mhm.
blues, particular styles of shots. Like, I really love the scenes where the Night Stalker Kevin Bacon's character is just talking to him, and all you see is his gloves like gripping tighter, and it's just like he's acting through his hands, and that was cool. So stylistically choosing to show the gloves and just tightening the fists. The use of some of the VHS looking style imagery where it's like a 1x1 frame in the middle of the shot is overused in my opinion. I think that it's used a little bit too much. But that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the neon lights as you walk down the Hollywood Strip. The reds, the blues, the lighting, it was all just soothing this sort of, not like this is shot in the 80s, but the love for it. And the easiest way I could describe it is it reminded me a lot of Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, how it doesn't reflect the era in the cinematography, but it reflects the era in a lot of other ways with obviously like set design and everything, but the feel, the lighting, and through, particular moments like when he's showing, Bounty Law, how it's shot exactly the same. Same with the Westerns, shot like a Western, but then it cuts back into like real life. And the same thing happens here. So a lot of the time I was getting a lot of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood feels, and then eventually a cult rocks up and I was like, it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it's T.I. West edition. So the violence was fun. And I'll get to like the ending and I'll come back to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood again. But I found the violence in this film just, it works. Like it's not as realistic as you need it to be, but it's still violent enough to make you go.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the only kill I remember is of the of Leon from the store where it basically he gets. Like that's a way to kill the like video store business if you keep killing the clerks that run it. But that's the only kill that I remember being a bit more slashery. The rest of it was more, I don't know. It was more like a thriller in the way that the rest of the murders by the Night Stalker were like carried out. They were obviously like really brutal as well, with like them being. I guess they were suffocated first before they were like basically sawed apart. It's brutal stuff, but it doesn't really go for the feel of like, for someone who's called a Night Stalker, I feel like the presence of the stalking wasn't as present as I would expect it to be. And then it played with the misdirections of, I feel like the PI maybe being the killer for like a tiny bit, but then that doesn't make sense because he's interacting with the actual killer. So you're like, oh, he's not a suspect. So he's basically like a surrogate, maybe a central character of like, if this movie were actually made in the 80s, maybe he would be the main character investigating this, which is intriguing. But then he also has a couple of moments where like on the studio lot at Universal, when they go up to the Psycho house, I don't get what he's doing. I'm just a bit confused, like what he like. I don't. Did you make sense more of John Labatt, like his character, or I felt like he was kind of out of place. It didn't really work for me.
Yeah,
like his whole story.
I agree. It made sense at first when he's hired to obviously find MaXXXine, and to me that makes sense. I thought he might have an arc of redemption in a way because he was a sleazy guy. But I do agree. I don't know what his motive is, other than he has a personal vendetta because she beat him up, and that's the only thing I have going for him. I think unfortunately for me, a lot of the characters don't make sense for me. John Lambat, played by Kevin Bacon, was a bit of a weird character, just like popping out to give some sort of exposition. And for me, I thought that he might have a redemption arc, but he ends up being one of the more claustrophobic kills of the film. Which, again, I enjoyed the over-the-topness of it all, but I felt that
Kevin Bacon always crushes it.
Always crushes it. But I really wanted something more of him. And it goes the same for Leon as well. I would think that the guy who is the most well-known in the world of slashers, because he's just naming all of these icons, would know how to survive And I thought that might be his thing, is that he survives the Night Stalker and lives to tell the tale. And because he's watched so many horror films and he's knowledgeable around movies, right? And I think that you and I have watched enough horror movies to know that you don't go down a particular hallway, you don't go out at night, you don't go to a cabin in the woods. We know the rules of horror, right? That's why we're both virgins still.
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
Each time I have someone like about to break my virginity, and I look at them and I was like, I can't do this. I'm gonna die. I'll be back.
I'm gonna die. I'll be back.
Yeah.
But I felt that maybe there could have been a better use of some of these characters and then their arcs. They don't really have anything, and it says even the same with Elizabeth Debicki's director character. Elizabeth
I feel like
Bender
she's
in the film.
She's like a red herring for maybe being the killer, but to me that never made sense. But I feel like it maybe wants to play that a bit. I didn't see it though.
I didn't know what her goal and motive was other than just to make the movie. I don't know what she was there to do to push the story forward.
Dude,
and give some conflict. Give some conflict for MaXXXine, because she's a really tough director. MaXXXine's got a lot going on in her personal life, but she needs to be present. So having a hard director who's firm in everything. But I never really found any of the characters to have satisfying arcs to revolve around. Maybe the only one is like Bobby Cannavale's Directive Torres, with all of his like monologues that he does, and he wanted to be an actor. That's the only arc that I think I might have enjoyed, but for me, the narrative was just the worst part. Up until the end.
Okay, so you did like the ending.
Oh my god, I fucking loved the ending.
It was chaotic, and I feel like intentionally chaotic, and just how much just death and shooting. And, very much.
I told you Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? And I was like, cults, okay, no worries. Someone's just got to get set on fire and fall into the pool. Just like what happens in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it fucking happens, and I'm just freaking out because I'm like, this is just bootleg.
You're doing the
Once
Leo
Upon a Time in
face
Hollywood.
at the Leo face pointing at the thing. It's Inception.
This was just an entertaining end to the film, and whilst I said narratively it doesn't give you much, I was engaged at least to see who was the Night Stalker and how it wraps up, and it was a perfect 80s love ending of running up the side of the Hollywood Hills like logo, the final shootout at the top, getting stabbed in the eye with a crucifix, and then MaXXXine standing over her father, finally like giving the monologue to end it all. A helicopter with a spotlight comes over the top. MaXXXine, drop the weapon, put it down. And it's just like, oh, this is exactly what. And the music, and I was just like, this is it. This is what the film should have been the entire time. Just a love to this age of cinema, but it gets wrapped up in this stupid mystery, and all these characters fucking suck. But I like the ending a lot. So
I didn't like the reveal of her dad and all that. For me, it's like it opens with that, and it's like, okay, well, that makes it so incredibly obvious what it's going to be, and I feel like it's not playing into the mystery as much, so it's fine that basically you can tell from the opening scene who the killer is going to be. I just found it a bit just a bit basic, and again, it just added to the movie being all over the place. I also don't like even that mix of the trope of basically all you need to succeed is to be on time, but you got all of the other skills, which makes for usually a quite unintriguing main character, because they don't have growth to do other than managing their time and being overwhelmed with like what other people want of them. And here it's like the killer is after her. She's got to figure it out, but she also has to be on a movie set. And it's not about like her having the skills to be on a movie set or like anything developing inside of her. It's just like, it's purely logistical. And that, I don't know, to me, that's like a pretty boring approach to this. I like that she's not like a good final girl that's like just surviving and taking care of people. She literally crushes the PI guy for no justified reason. Like, they don't even question him, they just kill him. Like, really, yeah, really just like over the top. I feel like that was one of the highlights for me. It's just like, okay, they don't give a shit, but yeah, didn't come together fully for me. I feel like all of the aesthetics though, like the set design, all of that still works to me, and I feel like it's a worse movie than I give the rating that I'm about to give. But I gave it like a 3 out of 5. I feel like it's still, like, if you like the first two, I know a lot of people like hate it on X. I feel like if you didn't like X, I don't know if you like MaXXXine, but the reactions with this trilogy has been all over the place. And I feel like that's great. That's like, for each and every one, there's something that you can pick out of it that you'll maybe end up liking. But yeah, to me, this is also the one that I like the least out of the 3.
I think that for me, X is still my favorite. I loved it all. I just enjoyed everything about it. For me, Pearl was a little bit less favorable just because it was less into the slasher thriller that I enjoyed, and still had its perks. And I think MaXXXine is very similar along those lines, where it doesn't do what I want out of the movie, but just like X and just like Pearl, they ooze enough style and substance that, well, not style and substance, because this film doesn't really have much substance, but oozes enough style and love for the craft of making movies, whether it be the love of making horror movies or the love of just cinema or just, classic cinema. There's a lot of really fun elements to this, especially if you enjoy movies. And for me, I still really, really, really enjoy it. But MaXXXine isn't as good as X, and I think it's just on the same level as Pearl, for me, which was 3.5 stars.
I mean, they have that whole thing on the Universal lot where she's being chased, and that's always fun if you have that access to that thing, because Universal also has that in their rides that you can ride through. I think the backlog a lot, and they show you stuff. So people who went there as well, they basically got that stuff still set up, and it's great that you can call back to something like this and have it set in a period piece, or like the fake New York setting or big city setting that they run through. It's great stuff. It's fun. Again, on a production design level, toppity top, but the rest of it just not as much. But if you were to pair it up with something else than the rest of the X franchise, what would you pick, Lachlan?
I decided to go completely ridiculous and something that oozes style and just is a lot of fun. The short Kung Fury is something that I just wanted to do as a double feature for MaXXXine. I think it's a fantastic little entertainment piece.
Wait, where does that play? Where can you watch that? Is it?
I'm pretty sure it's still on YouTube.
Okay, it's just on YouTube then. Yeah, David Sandberg. Who
Yeah, it's still on
didn't
there.
do
It's
much
from
beyond
9 years
this.
ago.
Okay, I haven't seen this, so I guess I gotta check it out myself.
You need to watch it.
Yeah, 30 minutes, easy commitment. There's a scene in the film that, like, towards the end there, where she gets ready in the mirror, which I don't know, it's like not something super unique, but it's riffing, or like people have been calling it like a riff on Boogie Nights, which was in itself a thing on Raging Bull. So like lots of layered references in there, and there's a ton. Like you could write a whole article about like the LA sleaze time period, and like the real killer that it is based on, like the Night Stalker, which turned out to be Richard Ramirez, and he was killing for like a year and a couple of months in the like mid 80s, and like the movies that spawned out of that. But I just went with Boogie Nights because I feel like it's a fun adjacent thing where she's an emerging actress coming out of the porn industry and wants to make it, wants just to be famous, not even to be an actress. She just really wants to be famous. And Boogie Nights is a deeper look into, I guess, the porn industry. And PTA's one of his best, I'd say. Definitely a great performance by Dirk Diggler. one of the better performances that Mark Wahlberg gives. I'd say like that's one of them where like I can actually recommend. He's pretty good in this film. Let's move on to Yorgos Lanthimos, gun premiering 3-hour 3-part anthology film, or not almost 3 hours. It's 164 minutes. kinds of kindness.
The triptych fable following a man without choice who tries to take control of his own life. A policeman who is alarmed that his wife, who was missing at sea, has returned and seems a different person. And a woman determined to find a specific person with a special ability who is destined to become progenious spiritual leader.
Sounds intriguing, sounds weird, sounds like early Yorgos Lanthimos. That's all I've been hearing since this premiered in Cannes and I was able to catch it. I got to rewatch it as well, fresh on the mind. Been received quite well in places. A 3.5 on Letterboxd, a 7 on IMDb, and a 64 on Metacritic. So not as universally praised as Poor Things was. Definitely not going to pick up those Oscar escalates and all of those awards, but it did get Jesse Plemons the Best Actor award in Cannes, which, having seen over 60 films in Cannes and all of the competition, he definitely deserved. He definitely had one of, if not the best performance coming out of the fest. It was made on a smaller budget than Poor Things was, with 15 million, and has grossed about 8 so far. And yeah, not as big a hit as Poor Things. I think that ended up going over 100 million. But I feel like you do get one, or at least two, maybe even three of these films where you can just express yourself artistically after you made a movie that won a bunch of Oscars. I feel like that's just like, you get the stamp of approval from Hollywood. At least you should. Yeah, it's an anthology film, which is tricky because it's essentially 3 short films that aren't really connected with each other at all, other than the cast that is overlapping in the cast, but not in the characters. So Lachlan, maybe we're gonna keep it spoiler free until we don't. But those performances, those returning characters, returning people that we got in there, yeah. What do you think, or maybe just what do you think of like this collection of anthology stories overall?
It's complicated to analyze and review this, especially because I only saw it less than 4 hours ago, and I'm still
Yeah.
processing everything in my head. I think that the film doesn't reach the same heights that Poor Things does, but you have to consider that Poor Things is a movie, and this is sort of like a collection of shorts. So it's completely separate. And this came to fruition due to the lengthy process that Poor Things was taken in post-production. So you have to take into consideration that they were working really hard to get Poor Things out and being the somewhat of what you could say a masterpiece of a film that it is. Whilst they were doing that, they were also like, hey, let's shoot some that fun stuff, because this is super low budget. There is nothing that makes you go, poof, which is a little bit unfortunate because I felt that, you know, Yorgos is usually really interesting with his cinematography, but this one I just felt was quite bland and a little bit just dull, flat, you could say. None of his quirks, like
wide-eyed lenses.
Like no
It's
like
shy.
ultra wide lenses. No really interesting uses of low profile shots, high profile shots. It was all just very, very simple. But I think the most important aspect to why they did that is for the performances, and I think that Jesse Plemons absolutely kills it. He was engaging with all 3 of his characters: Robert, Daniel, Andrew. Emma Stone, who is in the film isn't in the film until like about 30-40 minutes in at the end of the first story. Rita, Liz, Emily does a fantastic job. Willem Dafoe, it's a no-brainer. He is engaging throughout the entire thing. Hong Chow, fantastic. Margaret Qualley is also engaging as well. That everyone does a fantastic job with all of these characters that they get given. And it's hard to like break it down because each of them tell a different story. So as a collective, I think that they all kind of have one common thing, and that's sort of like love. That's the theme it's trying to explore between different characters. Because obviously in the first one you've got Jesse Plemons' character,
dedication in a way as well in love, and how much you're doing for that.
His relationship with Willem Dafoe's character. The second one, you've got Plemons and Stone's relationship and how far he can test it for love, and how far people will go for love in that one. And I guess you can have that in the same Same with the first one. And the last one is a similar idea as well, with how far love takes you to go, and it is all about love, and it's all about the relationships between each of the characters. And I think the best part is that they all work really well with each other. I
Yeah.
didn't not feel the chemistry between any of these characters, depending on what their relationship is. I don't think the film is as funny as Poor Things or any of other Lanthimos' works. I feel that
You were also
some of the
alone
other
in
films.
the theater, right?
Well, no, there was the people who rocked up sort of
Ah.
just before the film started. About 5 other people rocked up just before the film started during the trailers. But before the trailers started, I was alone in the cinema, so I was happy to laugh. Like, I laughed during a couple of the moments, but I just didn't laugh out loud. They were just like, there are things that he does that are just outrageously funny in Poor Things and in The Lobster, Killing a Sacred Deer, like the uncomfortable situation that you're left in. But with this one, I just didn't have that as much. My favorite joke was it reminds him of Santa Claus joke, and the boat was called HOH, and it was such a stupid joke, but I was the only person in the cinema who was laughing because I was just like, that was stupid and funny.
It's a funny one, yeah.
There's not really much to spoil here.
No, yeah, we can get, we can get into those. I feel like for those who are reluctant, I've heard a couple people say that the over 2.5 hour long runtime, which adding it up with, trailers and all that, it's over 3 hour long experience ultimately, is a tough sell. And to me, another thing that makes it a tougher sell is like that I would rank them 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to quality wise. I feel like it starts off with the strongest one, ends with the weakest. I feel like 1 and 2 are pretty interchangeable on the level of how entertaining they are, and 3 is a bit too dragged out. It feels like so far into the experience, it needs to be tightened a bit, and I feel like that's the consensus I've seen coming out of Gunn and seen the wider reception with it as well. Maybe it's like one of those things, hey, you watch the first 2, you dip out of the third, you catch it on streaming again, and you watch the third. Maybe that's the experience, but not going out, not seeing this, hopefully with a couple of other people, me watching it again, and I was alone myself as well. It was taking something away that like not like a room full of people is like bursting out with laughter at like moments, like the racket thing. Basically, like, maybe let's transition into spoilers, but like the racket thing that he gifts them, although it's not really a spoiler that much, but I feel like it set the tone of these jabs that it will put into the really weird earnestness that is going to carry through this whole like anthology story. How I feel like that's a Lanthimos-ism in a way, that he does something story-wise and character-wise super weird, but they don't treat it as being weird or like, that's a funny moment. They're playing it earnest, which makes it that much funnier. But it might not be like everyone's taste, but the racket thing, I feel like got the whole room was locked in for that one, and I had a good time going forward from there on out. But like, were the comedic bits the highlight for you, or the story? Like, what did you enjoy the most? And performances,
the only thing I really engaged me was the performances. Nothing got me excited. Visually, narratively, they were all interesting with how they progressed. I liked how they had not a twist, but I think for me, you said it goes 1, 2, and 3, with 1 and 2 being interchangeable. I actually preferred the third one for its outrageousness, with Emma Stone driving around in that purple Dodge, with and just doing burnout, like just like drifting around like every corner, not a care for a single thing.
Yeah, her character doesn't give off the vibe as like someone who wants to, like, she's a different person as soon as she steps into that, like, gets into the driver's seat. So, something about it is like really funny. It opens with this weird
analysis of Hunter Schafer, and you're just like, what this, because it's the weirdest one out of all of them that opens. A lot of them start off quite normal and then get a bit weird, like the second one with asking Emma Stone to cut off a finger and then cut off a leg, and then this body double thing, which I found quite an engaging twist of going from this psychological to this like body horror style
hmm
narrative. And with the first one, it's obviously like a sort of master servant sort of situation, but with the last one, it was just outrageous, like when it opened all the way to where it ended, and everything about it was like over the top. They drink this bath water, which, you know, in
hmm
2024, you know, it's not unheard of to drink bath water. But they drink the bath water of their leaders, Omni and Aka. They are trying to find this person who can magically heal things. Like, it's actually shown that they're able to do it, right? And
Yeah.
I was engaged with that because it was a weird narrative and all these characters are weird, and you think that, you know, she might be being taken advantage of, Emma Stone's character, by this cult
hmm
because she left her family, but then she gets taken advantage of by her husband and is date raped, and you're like, what the fuck? I don't know who I want to trust here. Do I want to trust this
Yeah.
weird cult family, or do I want to trust this husband who I don't trust anymore because he just date raped his wife or ex-wife or whatever the relationship is? So it was a really complex narrative for me with that last one, and then it had some of the best jokes, and then for me, the end was just ridiculous, and I was like,
Yeah.
what?
It was so crazy that like Margaret Qualley is the twin who was supposed to be dead. Like, her knowing what's up makes no
Yeah,
sense, but she's so
yeah,
dedicated to it, and like the way that he plays it of her just like plunging into the pool. It's it's really over the top, and then ending it on the note of just a car crash. I wasn't a fan of that. I like the other endings a bit more. Like in the second one where we get the montage of just the dogs in there. I feel like that was an interesting pun, but usually it doesn't really like joke. It doesn't really stick to one recurring joke as much, and I
no,
feel like
yeah,
that's better. The dogs thing was a quick callback, which I feel like was all right. It was like right on the edge. I like when she talks to her father, like played by Defoe, like slaps him when he talks shit about like her husband, um, and then basically says like that she like gives us an explanation of why she likes chocolate now, but we never get the explanation of like what the fuck is happening, or like why is there a clone of her here, and leaving all of that stuff open ended, and basically in a way like I usually, or maybe I did a bit more like a year ago when we did reviews. I tried to make sense and like connect it in a way that like, okay, this is saying that and it's going for that. And I feel like ultimately that can be interesting for certain films. For this one, it make no complete sense because it's inherently about its own weirdness that it creates in the worlds. That, and it doesn't really lead up to anything that you're like, oh, so that was like a rewarding experience towards the end. But it's just like it just ends on a note that it ends on, and I don't feel like there's much to dissect here, and go in deeper on. But yeah, it's I feel like you said at the start here, we got something that's consistently entertaining for such a long time. I found that quite impressive, and paired together with some really great performances by Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. And of course, like Willem Dafoe is like it goes without saying, but I liked it quite a bit. Was there like anything? I guess you said like visually it doesn't really interest you, but anything else that you wanted to mention, or maybe like what about the rest of Lanthimos' filmography? I don't know how familiar you are with all of it, his other stuff, but
I've wanted to watch his earlier stuff because I unfortunately have not had the opportunity to do it. Thing is, most of it is
yeah,
on Mubi, so I just got a resub. I had a Mubi subscription, and then I watched a bunch of stuff that I
me
wanted to
too.
watch, and then I just didn't watch anything for a while, so I got rid of it. A lot of his stuff
Yeah.
is on Mubi, and I know that I've basically seen his entire English filmography. I just haven't seen his Greek filmography, and
Those are a bit harder to get by.
Well, obviously it's more absurdist, and for me,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Which is why, all in all, I don't hate this film. People in the cinema were kind of just like, because the thing is, the cinema that it was at here in Perth is the indie cinema, and there is there's three groups of people who go to this cinema, right? People who live in that area and they want to go see a movie, and it's like their closest cinema. Then you've got the people who love films and filmmaking and cinema and art and all that jazz, and they go to this cinema. And then for whatever fucking reason, we have some of the oldest fucking people come to this cinema as well. And it's always the old people who chirp up right at the end when the credits roll. And the first thing I heard was behind someone, like literally the old bird behind me, go, "Well, that was a bit odd, wasn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, pretty odd." And then they're having a conversation about how strange it is what movies play at this cinema. And it's just like, well, they also play other movies as well, but right now there's a film festival going on, and this was one of the films there, and they've got a whole bunch of other movies that are playing, but I was just like, this movie is fine, this movie's great, it doesn't have anything extra that I would love to see, because even with absurdist movies, there are still other things that make it great. Like, I always go back to David Lynch with his absurdism. It's like, they're absurd, but they still have great things going for his films, and sure, this doesn't have the same funding that his other films have had, but I still think that it's a fun ride, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely, like, I don't know, he doesn't need to go bigger here. I feel like he has a great cast that he's sticking with for his next film, Begonia, as well, which has Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons again, where they're like two conspiracy-obsessed young men kidnapped a high-powered CEO of a major company, convinced that she is an alien intent on destroying planet Earth. And I
totally understand that all of these people, like Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone, and if probably Willem Dafoe will be in it, they could all play any of these characters that they're just talking about. They have the dynamic, they have the power, they have the range, that even though they're acting in the similar emotions, they can do those similar emotions in such different vast ways that are just super enjoyable. Like, Plemons' character is depressed for like all three of the shorts, but he's depressed in different fucking ways.
That is true. He has a different haircut, but that's the easiest to point out. And the style that he has in the third one is also like, I don't know what the fuck, like, it feels like some kind of neo-punk shit. That, like, he has like almost a trench coat, but the trench coat seems to be like of a softer material, but it's like too long for it not to be a coat. And it's just interesting how they dress, and then everyone has like a tiny bit more eye makeup around them. Like, the eyeliner around Willem Dafoe is obviously like one that stands out, but it's also Emma Stone who's like slightly different. So there's a lot of care in every single department for this one. It's not like they're shitting out 3 different random stories and it's just like weird XD. There's a lot to this that like you can appreciate, and I found it quite impressive, really entertaining. It's a 4 out of 5 for me.
For me, I enjoyed it, but I just don't enjoy it as much of Lanthimos' other works. I think that if I could separate them, they probably would have a higher score, but when they're all put together, it makes it just a 3.5. But I feel like if they were all separated, I could probably be like, yeah, I'd probably go like 4, 4, and 4. But I think when you've squeezed them all together and they don't have any style going for it, then it's just like a 3.5.
It's such a quick transition as well, because you don't have a big cast. It's basically just like 2 flashes of the cast list with something else that's happening, and then boom, we're on to the next one. Which we haven't talked about RMF, which is the recurring thing that like kind of links them in the time.
Yeah.
Does this? It just stands for real motherfucker, right? Or is it like, or is it just like supposed to be something completely
I have
different?
no idea.
I just like the whole time I saw that, it was like, it's got to stand for that. But I feel like the first one is like he dies, the second one he's flying, and the third one he's eating a sandwich. And like, yeah, that I appreciate that randomness. It's something funny about that. And hope you're having a good time with it as well. Again, unofficial double feature pick before we get to the double feature pick. If you want something weird from Lanthimos, Dogtooth, Lachlan, you probably are going to catch up with it as well. We might even do a bit of a deep dive, a bit more onto Lanthimos once this hits VOD. We'll see if we can make time for it. But his filmography is like super intriguing and worth diving into. Even if you don't connect with his first film, because I feel like he has a lot of different notes that he plays, and he brings out great performances out of all of his actors that he casts. But Lachlan, double feature time. What are you paying up with Kinds of Kindness?
So I decided to pick one actor who can do range, and I've decided to pick 3 different movies that kind of inspire me from each of them. So the first of the shorts is about a relationship power struggle, and you know, it's like 3 or 4 different people, but really it's 3 people. The person I picked is Joaquin Phoenix. So the first movie is Her, because it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That one's a bit of a stretch.
Mhm.
Then you've got your middle short, which is about psychological body horror and not trusting your significant other or other people. And that's Joker. And
Mhm.
my last double feature is because there was a boat on water, and in Beau is Afraid, he gets on a boat in water. That's the stretch.
Yeah.
Done. Her, Joker,
Cool.
and Beau is Afraid.
Beau is afraid about her choker.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly. I'm gonna go with a horror film that has clones in it as well. That is depravity. I don't know what word I'm exactly looking for. I have it in my mind, but again, too much of the air duster in my mouth. I'm brain dead. But Infinity Pool from David Cronenberg is just a really really fun. Sorry, Brandon Cronenberg. It's not David. It's Brandon.
Brandon.
Came out early last year. Has Mia Goth in it, so it might have been a good connection to X. But I'm putting it with this one because I feel like it kind of fits. I feel like you could watch these back to back, at least after this second part of this anthology collection. And yeah, that's what I'm going with. So that's that. Then we got a couple new releases out this week. First up, a movie called Oddity that I haven't heard much about is going into wide release in the States, as well as Twisters, the movie that we're going to cover in detail next week. Out in limited release, there wasn't anything notable in the States, but out on VOD, we're getting not 1 but 2 westerns in the same week. First up, we are getting part 1 of Kevin Costner's now partly canceled 4-part potential series Horizon and American Saga. Part 1, all of its 3 hours are gonna be on streaming. And then, interestingly enough, Viggo Mortensen also directed a western, The Dead Don't Hurt, where he's also the lead in it, that also comes out on July 16th. So a lot of westerns to talk about. We'll have Kevin on, our in-house western expert, to go over all that. And yeah, we're still working hard on our deep dive into westerns. We were initially going to space it up between part 1 and 2 to release all of those back to back. I feel like now it has become a longer project that's going to span over a couple of months, but it's going to be like a big thing if it all comes to fruition, so be on the lookout for that. We're revitalizing the Western genre, one movie at a time. And then A24's Tuesday has been out in limited release in the States and is now coming out on A24 on VOD. That stars Julia Louis-Dreyfus and a bird that I think represents death. It's a really out there premise, but yeah, I couldn't get my hands on it before. So with this out on VOD, I'll talk about it next week. Then something I'm trying to stay clear of, but I'm sure it will haunt me and I'll ultimately watch it, is a sequel to My Spy, The Eternal City. And yeah, that's a movie that's releasing. I'd very much recommend you, though, that you go check out Thelma. It's Juno Squibb as a 94-year-old going on an action trip. It was out in theaters for, I think, a couple of weeks. Didn't do too well, but definitely a movie that maybe does better on VOD, and I can very much recommend it, so go give that a try. In Swiss theaters, we are also getting Twisters, but then MaXXXine is releasing a week later here. And then we also got Handling the Undead, the Sundance film that I was able to catch. That sounded quite intriguing on the premise alone. It's a very subdued and slow moving zombie apocalypse film, but it ultimately isn't really about the zombie part, but more about like the death and all that. But it doesn't really come together. I felt it was quite boring. But yeah, for you, Lachlan, Longlegs just premiered in the States, but you are getting Longlegs this week. We don't have distribution for it here. It's playing at a festival this weekend that I'm unfortunately not able to go to. So Lachlan will have to report back if Longlegs is all that after the great promotion that they've had over the last couple of months. Can the movie live up to the potential? I initially saw this like listed as like a movie that's 160 minutes long, and then I checked again like a couple days later, and no, it's 101 minutes long. It's not even that long. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the show. Next week, it's going to be a jam-packed episode once again, because we're talking about Twisters, likely also Horizon, and then a bit of an extended review from Lachlan about Longlegs. But in the meantime, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, by the way, I guess I could have shouted it out earlier, but we only post a podcast on that feed. So if you want our reviews, all of our bonus videos, they only post on YouTube. So even if you are a podcast audio only listener, then yeah, go give the YouTube a try and check out all the links below to all of our secondary channels. And yeah, we'll catch you next week.
Bye.